In the quiet suburban town of Coral Springs, Florida, the shocking relationship between Laura Bennett, a 54-year-old real estate mogul, and Jake Reynolds, a 19-year-old college student and her daughter's boyfriend, was as reckless as it was passionate. For more than 2 years, they carried on a secret and intense affair, meeting in hidden places driven by forbidden desire and a shared thirst for escape. What began as a passionate romance grew darker with every stolen moment, eventually spiraling into something far more sinister. On the night of August 14, 2022, Jake Reynolds was found dead in his Coral Springs apartment, his skull shattered by a single fatal blow. The peaceful neighborhood was shaken by the brutality of the crime, but as investigators delved deeper, they uncovered the twisted truth behind Jake's murder, a web of betrayal, lust, and jealousy that led to a tragic and violent end. The discovery of Jake's body was just the beginning of a story that would haunt not only Laura Bennett but also her daughter, Sarah, for the rest of their lives. The murder investigation would soon expose how the passion between Laura and Jake had caused the unraveling of relationships, families, and ultimately lives. At just 19 years old, Jake Reynolds seemed to have it all. He was tall, athletic, and charismatic, with a smile that could light up any room. He was popular among his friends and respected by his peers at the local community college, where he studied mechanical engineering. Jake was known for his love of working with his hands, especially when it came to cars. Most weekends, he could be found in his garage, fixing up old vehicles, a passion he had inherited from his father. But Jake wasn't just about cars. He had an energy that was infectious, a quiet confidence that drew people to him. To his friends, Jake was the guy who seemed to have everything figured out: a solid career plan, a loving relationship with his girlfriend, Sarah, and a close-knit family. Jake and Sarah had been dating for over 2 years, and to everyone around them, they were the perfect couple. Sarah, also 19, was bright, determined, and a budding law student. With long dark hair and striking green eyes, she commanded attention in any room. She was outgoing and ambitious, with dreams of a successful career in law. Jake adored her, and they often talked about their future together, planning to move in once Sarah finished her studies and even discussing marriage. Everything seemed perfect, but beneath the surface, Jake was harboring a secret that no one, not even Sarah, could have ever imagined. For nearly 2 years, Jake had been carrying on a passionate and forbidden affair with none other than Sarah's mother, Laura Bennett. Their relationship was secret, intense, and full of desire, and with each passing day, the guilt weighed heavier on Jake. What had started as a forbidden attraction had become an addiction, one that was impossible for him to break. He loved Sarah, or at least he thought he did, but he couldn't stop seeing Laura, and neither could she stop seeing him. Laura Bennett was a successful real estate entrepreneur who had built her career from scratch. At 54, she had established herself as a powerful figure in Coral Springs' luxury real estate market, known for her sharp business acumen and ability to close major deals. Despite her professional success, her personal life had begun to deteriorate. Her marriage to Robert Bennett, Sarah's father, had grown cold over the years. What was once a passionate relationship had dwindled to a polite and distant coexistence. Laura's charm and allure hadn't faded, but her need for excitement had. She longed for the thrill of passion that had once been so abundant in her life, but that had long since faded in her marriage. It all started innocently enough. Sarah had invited Jake over to the Bennett house for dinner, as she often did. The evening began like any other: Sarah, Laura, and Robert sitting around the dinner table, exchanging polite conversation while Jake talked about his classes and his part-time job. It wasn't until Sarah and Robert excused themselves from the table and went to the kitchen for dessert that the atmosphere between Jake and Laura shifted. With Sarah and her father no longer present, Jake and Laura found themselves alone in the living room. They exchanged a glance, one that lingered just a little too long. Something unspoken passed between them, a flicker of mutual attraction that neither of them had acknowledged until that moment. It was subtle, but it was electric. That one brief moment would change the course of their lives forever. In the weeks that followed, Laura found excuses to stay around when Jake visited. There was always an extra glass of wine or a long conversation about nothing in particular. Slowly, the tension between them grew, and it wasn't long before their attraction became impossible to ignore. They started meeting in secret at first, at the Bennett house when Sarah wasn't around, but it wasn't long before they began to meet elsewhere. They stayed at luxury hotels in Miami, far from prying eyes. The secrecy only intensified their desire, and what began as a forbidden flirtation quickly turned into a full-blown affair. Laura, who had always been in control of her professional life, found herself swept away by the excitement and passion of the affair. The thrill of being desired by a young, attractive man like Jake made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. Jake, too, was captivated by Laura's beauty, confidence, and experience. Their stolen moments became an addiction for both of them, and as the affair continued, their secret meetings grew more frequent and more daring. They would meet at vacant real estate properties that Laura had shown to potential buyers. In the dead of night, when no one was around, Jake would sneak into these empty homes, and they would lose themselves in their passion. Despite the excitement, the affair took its toll on both of them. Jake's life became a balancing act between his relationship with Sarah and his secret affair with her mother. The guilt began to weigh on him, but he couldn't stop himself from going back to Laura. At the same time, Laura's possessiveness grew. She wanted more from Jake, more time, more attention, more commitment. As the affair escalated, Laura began hinting that they could run away together and start over. But Jake wasn't sure he could leave Sarah behind. The more he resisted, the more desperate Laura became. She was no longer content with their secret encounters. She wanted him all to herself. By late July 2022, Jake's world was starting to collapse. Laura's behavior had become erratic, and she was no longer satisfied with the secrecy of their affair. She began showing up at Jake's apartment unannounced, leaving him scrambling to make excuses. She would send him dozens of late-night texts, demanding his attention, and would even show up at gatherings where Sarah and Jake's friends were present, pretending that it was all just a coincidence. Jake felt suffocated by Laura's increasingly possessive behavior, but he couldn't escape. She had him trapped, and as much as he loved Sarah, he knew that if the truth came out, everything would be ruined. It was during one of these surprise visits that everything came to a head. On the night of August 14, 2022, Laura showed up at Jake's apartment, drunk and emotional. She had been trying to contact him for days, but Jake had been avoiding her. When he opened the door, he found Laura standing there, her eyes filled with desperation. She forced her way into the apartment, demanding answers. The argument between them escalated quickly, and in a fit of rage, Laura attacked Jake. She grabbed him by the shirt, and in the chaos, he shoved her away. Laura stumbled, hitting her head on the edge of a table, but the violence didn't stop there. In her fury, Laura grabbed a heavy glass ashtray from the coffee table and hurled it at Jake. The impact was brutal. Jake collapsed to the floor, blood pooling around his head. In that moment, Laura realized the gravity of what she had done. She had killed him in a blind rage. Panicked, she fled the apartment, leaving behind the bloodied ashtray and the lifeless body of the man she had once loved. The next morning, Jake's roommate discovered the horrific scene and immediately called the police. The investigation quickly revealed that this wasn't a random act of violence. The brutality of the murder, combined with the lack of any obvious motive, suggested something far more personal. Detective Mark Harrison, with decades of experience, was assigned to the case. As soon as he arrived at the crime scene, he suspected that this wasn't going to be an ordinary case. The savagery of the murder pointed to a personal motive, and soon, the name that kept coming up was Sarah Bennett. But when Sarah was questioned, she was devastated. She had no idea what had happened to Jake, and her alibi checked out. That left only one suspect, Laura. Harrison's investigation quickly uncovered a series of unsettling details about Laura's life. Rumors of a strained relationship with her husband, Robert, and the growing tension with her daughter Sarah painted a portrait of a woman who had lost control of her emotions. As the detective dug deeper, he uncovered the truth of the affair with Jake. Through witness statements and forensic evidence, it became clear that Laura had murdered Jake in a fit of jealousy and rage. The trial that followed was nothing short of tragic. The courtroom was filled with raw emotion as Sarah learned the devastating truth about her mother's actions. She had no idea that Laura and Jake had been having an affair, and she was heartbroken to learn that the man she loved had been lying to her all along. The jury found Laura guilty of second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The consequences of Laura's actions were far-reaching. Sarah's life was turned upside down. She not only lost the man she loved, but also her relationship with her mother. Sarah went on to finish her studies, but the emotional scars from the murder would stay with her forever. Laura's career came to a halt as well. The once powerful real estate mogul became a symbol of scandal and betrayal. No one in Coral Springs would ever look at her the same way again. For the families involved, the events of that summer would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The consequences of a forbidden love, a love that was kept hidden, broken, and destroyed, had irrevocably shattered their world. What began as a passionate affair had ultimately led to a murder, and in the end, all that remained were shattered lives and the cruel reality of the damage done.